My special guest has been described as a superstar national treasure, placed somewhere between Joanna Lumley and the Queen. He is Eddie Izzard, and his story is one of achievement against all the odds. This is a masterclass in persistence. Eddie Izzard is the sum of his contradictions. He's a street performer who starred in Hollywood movies, a comedian who's performed stand-up in French and aims to do the same in Russian, German and Spanish. He's played Cardiff to Kathmandu, Moscow to Mumbai. In his spare time, he completed 43 marathons in 51 days, which meant he ran a distance of 1,200 miles. Well, what next? Well, he's looking at doing a gig on the moon, and he intends to stand as Mayor of London in 2020. If he succeeds, he'll be the first action transvestite to get the job. That we know, that is. You wouldn't bet against him because this is a most singular man. Welcome, please, Eddie Izzard. I suppose the Mayor of London's realistic.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I talked to a number of people and they go, yes, and I've talked to some journalists and they've gone, well, no. And I say, well, Boris Johnson, and they go, well, yes. And I also add in Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ronald Reagan. You know, coming from sort of creative and going into doing something like politics. Well, you know, we'll see. Because I'm thinking in my mind, because I have to do this for another... I'm performing and doing all my acting and running for another 6 years, and then I have to try and get the nomination. I could fall at the nomination. I could fall at the first hurdle before the election. I have done that before. When I was trying to be Street Performer of the Year, and that didn't happen. And so I do know a lot of failure. As you've tracked my thing, there was a big chunk of failure beforehand. So if I fail, I will do just what I did in the marathons that I did recently with Nelson Mandela said, don't judge me by my successes, judge me by the number of times I fail.
We'll talk about the marathons later because it's been quite extraordinary. But, I mean, you're quite right, because when you read about you, it's not been an untrammeled rise to the top at all. I mean, it's been... There were times when you must have despaired, and yet you've never, ever actually given in. You just pursued, not even an ambition. What was it? What drove you on when all those years when you were street performing, before that, not quite sure what you wanted to be? What was it? What was at the end of the rainbow?
Well, I've said I think it's a desperation to be loved. So I think that in the performing sense, and I link this to my mother... my mother died. I played a raven just before my mother died, which is kind of bizarre. She made the raven outfit for me. And I remember playing this raven and not being bothered about playing the raven. And I even got a laugh in it, but I still was going, oh, I'm a raven, and it's not really... I didn't think, I've got to be a raven again. You know, one day I'll be the best raven in the world. It didn't hit me at that point. And then Mum died, and then this lot of affection disappeared. Then I was at boarding school. I didn't see my dad for most of the year, you know, about 2/3 of the year, because you're at school. And so at the age of 7, I saw this guy doing a play, and he was getting a lot of applause and laughter, I seem to remember. I thought he was doing Mother Courage, so that doesn't quite make sense. He was doing it incredibly badly and juggling rabbits or something. And, but I just remember this. I've worked out, actually. It was at this school, St. Bede's, this school right by the South Downs, and I could track back. They must know which plays they did in which year. I could work out what play he was doing. Anyway, I saw this and I thought, I've got to do that. And it didn't move from my brain. That's the interesting thing. I wanted to be an actor, and that didn't move. Then it changed into being a comedian, because I discovered Python, and I was getting no roles at school. I didn't have a good agent at school. Well, you know, I just couldn't get the roles, which is either because they thought I was rubbish or I was rubbish. And I can't work out. I think I might have been rubbish.
Tell me about I've read, it's very moving about your account of your mother dying when you were 6.
Yeah.
And she died of cancer when you were 6.
Yeah.
Explain to me the effect it had on you, and has on you today.
You've got to liken it to walking around, playing with kids, having little gangs, you throw mud balls, you do stuff, you have ice creams, and then someone hits you with a baseball bat. It's emotionally that. It just... she was getting ill. She was yellow. She had jaundice. There was a lovely story that she had a nurse looking after her. I still thought she was ill, but you get ill, you get better. That's what happens.
Sure.
And they said, you've got to knock on the door, because I think she had a colostomy bag, and I think it was all really rough. It obviously was rough. And they said, you've got to knock on the door, me and my brother, before we came in, because we just used to run in and jump on our bed. So we added in knocking on the door, and then we'd knock on the door, not wait for an answer, run in, jump on our bed. And there was no idea that it was going to happen. And then one day it happened, and then everything just went weird. So I just remember, it just rips it out of your body. I still haven't got over it. If I discuss it with my brother, we start crying instantly, and we can't deal with it. So
you haven't got over it in what kind of sense, though? I mean, what is it that... you did say once that you thought your entire career was about wanting to get her back.
Yeah, this was in
What does that mean?
In the documentary, I don't know. In the documentary, I believe I suddenly had this idea that I said, I know what I'm doing, because why I keep doing stuff and I keep doing stuff, and I said, if I do enough, then maybe she'll come back. And I don't know why I said it, because I hadn't thought of it before. It came to my head. It's a weird idea. It's sort of true, but it's almost like an out-of-body experience. It was rather odd, but there is this idea that maybe if I can do enough. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense.
But grief doesn't make any sense, does it?
No.
Do you think you'll ever be rid of that sense of grief or whatever it is? You won't?
No, and if they said, if you could stop everything now or not do anything that I've done and get my mother back, I'd get my mother back.
This is a masterclass in performing, in the sense of you telling me and the audience out there, part of the interview, about how you do it, how you prepare for it, how you walk on stage to it. I mean, it is, in my experience, and I've interviewed a lot of comedians, it's the one job that I think is the toughest job of all, performing, because you walk out naked by yourself. Well, there you are, and this audience saying, make me laugh. Now, you once said that the best way to start is not to think of anything, just go on and see what happens. Is that really how you work?
Well, I remember playing the Comedy Store 20 years ago, and late night on a Friday night was the hard one, the 12 o'clock start. People were very drunk, and they would shout out, you, a lot of swear words they'd be shouting at you. And so you'd have to speak very quickly so that they couldn't shout them out, and they were very drunk, and they just wanted to sort of murder you. It seemed fun, like a gladiatorial sport. And before you went on, you'd think, they're really wild. I shouldn't start with one. I should do this bit. I should talk about what's happening at the moment, or the football. Who won the football? No. And your mind goes into fear, and it's almost like before a battle. You're just spinning and spinning and spinning. And I found the best way to deal with all the fear was to blank out that mind and trust that you've got a show. You know, you have a show there.
Yes.
If you don't have a show, it is tricky to go on with nothing in your head, because you will be going on and going, But if you have already set what you're going to say at the beginning, stick to that. Otherwise, you'll just go, what about this? Oh, and there's the confidence. They want to see your confidence. And if they heckle you, there's a French stand-up called Gad Elmaleh. He played here in London because the French can play here. It's the sixth biggest city in France. 400,000 French people live in London. And he went to play the French people. And I thought, I'll go on and introduce him. I know him, and it's fun. Go on and do the first 5 minutes. I went on, and they booed me. It's the Shepherd's Bush Empire in London. I'm coming on. So I said, in French, I said, shut your face. And, ta gueule. And they said, just shut the up. And then I went on, and I said, no, he can't be here tonight. He's broken his neck. He's actually dead. And so I'm, so don't hassle me. So because they attacked me, I attacked them back, and then it was all right. But that's what it gets into. It's like street combat, where if they threaten you and you back off, then you're dead. Whereas you've got to stand and be ready for it.
But you, of course, double the problem by actually working in a foreign language. You do gigs in France now, and you're aiming to learn Russian.
Yep. German next.
German next. All right, let me ask you the obvious question, why?
Well, it is part of my thing. World War II happened. A lot of our ancestors, our grandparents' generation, great-grandparents, died in that war from around the world. You know, it's 50 million dead in that war, 10 million in the Second World War. I know about history. I go to Normandy on the every 5th anniversary. I'm sort of a student of that situation, and I don't like extremists. I think most people politically are centre-right, centre-left, somewhere in the centre, and then there are extremists who say, believe in us or murder, or we will murder you. And I just want to fight against that. And I think a lot of people in the centre of politics, they say, well, live and let live. I don't really want to get up and tell people what to do, but some of us have to, otherwise the right wing gets in.
But this is a crusade, then, in a sense.
No, crusade, a dangerous word there, because as I was born in Islamic country...
But it sounds like that when you're talking like that.
Well, it could be a mission, it can be a quest, but it can't be a crusade.
I see.
Because that crusade was jihad, and that's...
Here we go.
You know your history. I think we have one life. I don't believe in a God. Maybe there's more lives, but no one seems to have got back with a good message saying there are 2 lives. There's not one, there's 2. So live this one pretty good, and you get an extra one as a monkey who plays banjo. I don't know. So we know there's this one. You know, if one person, I was saying, if one person got to heaven and said, I'm in heaven, it's like a spa, it's brilliant, you know? Just behave yourselves and go to church. It's quite nice. It's a spa. Hell is awful. But no one's done that. So I'm going to live this life to the full, and I want to do one election because I think I've proved that I have determination. I can do things in a different way. People said, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. You can't tell people you're transvestite. You can't paint your nails with different flags. And I have.
You have. Oh, well... Let's go back a minute. You mentioned there the business of being a transvestite. When did you first realise you were a transvestite?
4.
4?
Yeah.
So you tried... your mother's clothes with you?
Well, no, apparently I did. I don't remember that. I tried Mum's clothes, I think. Well, you know, because I was 4. I do remember a friend of the family, and she had a wig. I was trying to try that on. I kind of like long hair. It could be something to do with Mum, but I really think, you know, I knew at 4 that it was in there, and it hasn't really moved. And it's straight transvestite. I don't even know why it's not bisexual transvestite. We get given these cards. We all know, everyone sitting here, everyone at home, they were given genetic cards. Some of them are quite dark cards or difficult cards to deal with. Some make them great cricket. Some means they're just brilliant at making shoe wear, you know. Well, there is, you know, and women buy shoes in the car. And I also buy shoes that are women's shoes. Men's shoes are just boring. These are good heels. Yeah, these are the cards I was given. I decided to tell the truth about it when I was 23, and I came out, and I think that's healthy.
Well, and it's not worked against you, that is for sure. I mean, people... I mean, you must have been... Were you surprised at the way that people accepted it?
Well, it swings and roundabouts.
In what sense?
Well, I can still get duffed up in any major square of the world if I go there on a Saturday night.
You have been beaten up.
Well, what I've had is I've been waiting for taxis or minicabs late at night in sort of Leicester Square, Piccadilly, and I've had people say, let's get this guy, let's see what he's wearing. Threats of violence, while some guy's going, you're Eddie Izzard, can I get your autograph? I've had the threat of violence and the offer of autographs at the same time. I just got to keep my eye over these guys because I think they're going to tear my head off.
Well, what about the career now? We mentioned before this kind of zigzag path you took toward stand-up and toward what you are today. The street performing seems to be very interesting because you took that on, and it would seem to me to be one of the most difficult jobs of all, isn't it? To actually go into Covent Garden or wherever it might be, attract a crowd. How do you do that? I mean, what's the...
You were mentioning that stand-up is hard. Stand-up is... I liken stand-up to learning how to drive a car, but without the driving instructor getting in with you. But just beforehand, he says, look, there's turn the steering wheel and avoid things. You've got to find the braking point with the clutch. Now, good luck, drive in traffic. And that's what stand-up's like. And street performing is... I don't know what it's... Maybe it's that in 3D, because people don't want to stop and watch you.
No.
And it looks... You watch shows at Covent Garden or any great street performing in the world, up at Edinburgh, and you think, my God, you just stand there, people come and they seem to laugh. They don't. And so when you go out with your first shows, they wander off, and then you're playing to no one. And I've done 2 shows to entirely no one, which was when I was quite good, actually, and that was quite an interesting thing. I can actually perform to no one. It's quite liberating, because no one can criticise you. I was playing... Where was I playing? Something like Peterborough Town Centre. Oh, no, it was Oxford Town Centre. Anyway, I was performing, and I was in this place where no one was there. So I did my entire show to a vast amount of nobodies, an invisible audience. I was getting on a unicycle. I get on the unicycle, as you... A very good point there. And no one's... And then one child walked in and walked right up to me. And I thought, I'm not performing to one child. That's sad. Performing to no one is brilliant. One child is no good. So I stopped, and I stared at the child, and he stared at me, and I stared at the child. And there was about 3 minutes of staring. And then he walked off. And then I carried on getting on the thing. So I managed... I was getting paid for it, so I thought it was OK.
What about drunks? I imagine that you're prey to that too, aren't you? People joining in your act and that sort of thing.
People do walk in. I do remember street performing in Sauchiehall Street in Glasgow. This guy, I was doing quite well, getting the audience together, and he shouted out in a good Glasgow accent, "Fuck off, you English cunt!" and I said, here, it's the head of the tourist board here in Glasgow is just welcoming me to Glasgow. So I knew what to do. And I said, yeah, and he was a street guy, and then he came in and he played with me, and it was fun. You actually have to know, you have to have the confidence. And that's what I learned from the street, was to stand in front of no one, and I can build up from no one on the street. And when I did that, because of the street, I could play Hollywood Bowl. That taught me to play these big arenas.
It's interesting.
Yes.
So that was the experience of not stand-up, not going to the comedy store and that sort of thing?
No, it's so hard. Stand-up is hard, and street performing is so hard that if I'd learned stand-up first, I would never have gone and learned street after that. I learned it accidentally before. It was just by chance. I couldn't think of what else to do. I didn't know stand-up was existing at that point. And I failed for about a year, maybe a year and a half, did very bad shows, embarrassing.
What kind of shows? What were you doing?
Failed tricks. A beaver, toy beaver that would be pulled on a piece of elastic through a hoop of newspaper, escaping from a woolly jumper, making a bowl of cornflakes disappear with my partner, Rob. We had this bowl of cornflakes, we're going to make it disappear. Then he just put the cloth over my head and I would eat it, which was the whole magic of it. We'd throw false knife-throwing act. It was rubbish tricks, which... At their best, people would go, they're crazy. And at their worst, they go, they're awful. And so it didn't hit. And then we started sword fighting.
Sword fighting?
Yes, that was good.
Oh, was that good?
That was good. That was exciting. I directed Three Musketeers at Sheffield University. Rob had been in it. And so we knew how to do this with epées. And we sort of did a teach yourself sword fighting and the different moves you could do. And it was quite... And in the end, I threw a sword across... the streets of Covent Garden at him. I threw it, and he'd catch it under his arm and die. But I learned how to throw it diagonally, so it wasn't that dangerous. It was somewhat dangerous, but not that dangerous. So
when you're doing all these games, or enjoying yourself, and to an audience or not, as the case may be, what was in your mind? What was the purpose? What were you seeing at the end of all this?
Hollywood Bowl, I think, was at the end of it. But I couldn't work. I wanted to do Monty Python. I love Monty Python. I discovered them in my teenage years, and then particularly through the audio tapes. I didn't have a turntable, so it was audio tapes, and listening to all those shows, I was totally into it. I really thought what Michael Palin did, I could do that, and I was playing characters with deep voices, or playing characters who were idiots like this. And it was... and I got the Goons at the same time, which is really quite weird, as my dad started playing me Goon shows as I found Monty Python. So I'm getting Goons and Python, and Python was influenced by the Goons, but I'm getting Goons at the same time. So all that surrealism went straight in. I said, this is for me, and that's what I was trying to do.
It's interesting that surrealism that's in your act, because I mean a lot of stuff, or some stuff you do where you talk to animals, you bring animals alive and talk to them.
I don't know why animals, but they do show human beings. If animals do things, then you can see humans in relief. You know, because you can see
how.
Well, you can see it like a human behaviour. I had on the Ark, I had someone from BBC World Service interviewing a squirrel who was saying, bloody, you know, the lions and the tigers ate everyone on the Ark. It was a nightmare. God's had a bad plan. And he's just doing, well, what are you doing? I hid in a biscuit tin with chocolate hot dogs. And my wife got away on a pea green boat with an owl and a pussycat. And with a Gatling gun.
Now, whose idea was it to that got you back into acting? Because you said earlier at the beginning of this interview that that's where it started, the first ambition. Then you went... I mean, I'm interested in you in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because you worked with some really big stars, didn't you?
Well, I was breaking into Pinewood Studios when I was 15. I was really...
Breaking into it?
Yeah. I discovered films. I really did want to act. This wasn't a thing I've made up retrospectively. I was going to say heterosexually. Retrospectively. I was watching, really watching the telly and realizing these are real people. These are people. Okay, so they're in this and they get paid money. Okay, I'm going to do this. Not telling anyone because they wouldn't have been widely accepted at home. And I'm going, how do I get into this? I have no idea. Who do I know who's been in it? No one. The titles at the end titles. I thought, read the titles. There's information in the titles. And there was no video, so it was just... best boy, he was a really good boy. There was a key grips, what? I don't know, grip. And I couldn't work out, except Pinewood Studios, Ivor Heath Bucks came up, and I thought, Ivor Heath Bucks. Ivor Heath Bucks is isn't that a short thing for something that's... And I got a map, it was before Google, so I got a map of the entire UK, and it had every alphabetical town and village in the whole country, and I went down, I found Ivor Heath, Buckinghamshire, and I took a train to London, I took a tube to Uxbridge, took a bus to Ivor Heath, I got out and I walked up to Pinewood Studios. I said, I want to be in, I'm going to be in films. I need to be in films, I will be in films. I am here to be in films. And they said, fuck off, kid. And not the right answer, not the right answer at all. Do you know how far I've come? And then I walked, I thought, there must be another way in. And just up the road, there was another way in. And so I studied it, a bit like in where eagles dare with binoculars kind of thing. I was just standing on the other side of the road watching. And some people going up and checking if they could go in, and some people just walking in. And I thought, I need to be with the walking in people. So I just get up there, get a speed up, and I go, there's a certain speed to walk in. You don't run, and you don't amble. You've got to go at that pace where you're going to do something. So I got in, and I just steamed past the gate and the guard and everything. And I was in Pinewood, and I just keep going, And I did a bit of stand-up with this, and I said I was the creeping kid creeping around Pinewood. But in fact, I was the marching kid. I was actually moving quite a pace, as if I'm on a mission to take Mr. Doctor, and the new film of the thing. It's got to get the, so I just moved quite fast, looking and waiting for someone to say, be in this film, I even went up to the doors of the Bond stage, and I listened to the doors, and I could hear people. There's people in the Bond stage. There's Bond. They're making a Bond film. I don't know. There's no way of knowing in those days if anything was filming, especially if you're 15. And so I go, if I go in now and I say I want to be James in Bond, just in the Bond. I don't have to be James Bond, but anything, And they go, get out, kid. We're going to put you in prison. And I thought, if I can't because they could throw me out. So I just kept marching around Pinewood at high speed. And then I marched out of Pinewood. I didn't really... it was a good plan to get there. But I should have gone into the Bond stage right at the last moment. I should have done a do-or-die attempt. Take me in, help me sweep up. And when David Putnam did all his films and Chariots of Fire, I was trying to find out where he was shooting so I could just sweep up on the set.
But you got to Hollywood.
Yes, I got
You worked with Clooney and Brad Pitt and people like that.
Yes, I did Valkyrie out with Tom Cruise out in Berlin. Yeah, Oceans 12 and 13.
Yeah.
Yep, it's great. They're still,
Did you envy them their lifestyle?
Not their lifestyle, because I felt my lifestyle was better.
Did you want to be like them? Do you want to be a big star like them?
Well, yes-ish. Well, yes. Well, if you say I'd like to be like George Clooney, I'm not going to be like George Clooney. I'm going to be like me. But I'd like to keep hacking my way up. Like I played the lead role in The Riches, a drama out in America.
Yeah.
So that was good, but that's in television. That wasn't in film. I'm now doing the Hannibal Lecter series. I've had smaller parts in bigger films and bigger parts in smaller films. Lost Christmas, I had one of the lead roles in that, and Treasure Island playing Long John Silver. So I'm getting them now. But I knew that if I was standing on the Ocean stage and longing to be like them, that wouldn't be the right space. I just had to be right. It's taken me a hell of a long time to get here, and I'll just keep pushing onwards.
But I mean, where does that fit now in the scheme of things? Do you still regard yourself as being in the main the comedian who tours the world, or the comedian who wants really to be an actor?
I'm a slashy, I'm afraid. I'm an actor-comedian, actor/comedian. I like doing both, and I want to keep pushing myself dramatically. I think my stand-ups are obviously at an interesting place, and I'm touring the world, and I'm doing gigs in French and Germans to come. Oui. And but I wanted to do drama in the first place, and it's a different beat. And I've taken a long time to get there, because if you get very big in stand-up, I held back my stand-up. I never did a comedy series, because if you become Mr. Comedy, I feel that people will...
Never did a comedy TV series?
Yes, I never did a sketch show, never did a sitcom.
No, you've not done that, have you?
And I felt...
That was a deliberate policy?
Deliberate policy. That was
Why?
it. I feel if you become Captain Comedy, then audiences will resist you in dramatic roles. It is really difficult. Bill Murray is probably the person I'm trying to emulate the most. Came from, you know, Ghostbusters, huge world comedy hits, and had to almost kill that audience and said, I will not do that. I will not do that. I'm now doing things that are different, finer, which are more dramatic. So he's had to almost kill that audience. I've tried to keep the stand-up going and keep doing dramatic things. I'm playing a serial killer now. So I'm trying to do... It's weird. It's two different places.
On that business about performing again in another language, I must show the audience a wonderful clip we have of you in the early days when you just sort of started to do stand-up in France, in Paris. And as I said, you've got some guts. You have some balls. You really have. I mean, look at this. This is wonderful.
Dans l'orange, tout le monde dit... Grab... Oh, fuck, I don't know the words. Grabber, oui, grabber. What's hold? Qu'est-ce que c'est le mot hold? Tenir. Tenir le pot d'orange. Oui, c'est très rigolo. Ah oui. Fuck. Yeah, that was... Can I tell the story behind that?
Please do.
Well, I decided that I wanted to do things in Europe, and I was in France, and they were doing gigs in English, because there's like 200,000 English speakers in Paris. And I thought, I got there, and I did this, and I thought, this is great, but I got to do one in French. Find a little venue, I said to the promoter, find a little venue that's kind of sealed off, and I can do that to a friendly, invited audience. But unfortunately, the venue was chosen had a horseshoe bar with half the people in the, maybe even 2/3 of the people in the room were just there for drinking. And I was in front of another section, and it was the wrong building. So I went back and I swore a hell of a lot backstage. I said, I can't do this. And then I realized I waited so long for this moment, so I have to do this. And in fact, even if it's awful, I will have succeeded through having the balls to do it. And it was awful. Afterwards, they interview people afterwards. They say, well, what did you think? And there were British people there who were bilingual, and they went, it was awful. And then a French woman said, no, he has tried to do this, so it is a good thing. And she was but it was awful. It was, I mean, you say that, the fear got in.
Yes.
And that's the thing.
Yes.
I don't like that. That's why I closed the mind beforehand, but that closed it too much there. I forgot all my French because I was trying, I mean, I did this thing as well when I tried to be in the National Youth Theatre, and I was at school in Eastbourne. And I worked out, then they had lessons, it was a boarding school, and I worked out that I could get out of school with no one knowing, take a train, this is again, I was a teenager, and at school, during the term time, and I could go to London, do an audition, and get back before anyone had noticed. And I did this, I learned 2 speeches, I got there, it was under control, I was very good at memorizing things in there, on the train on the way up, I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm collected, this is drama, this is what I want to do, and I love comedy, but this is drama. Here, get to the National Youth Theatre, to the Shore Theatre, by King's Cross, I'm in there, I'm in this place in front of the guy, I get in front of him, and I go, there. And being relaxed, the forcing myself to be relaxed, had wiped my memory. And I go, and it was the Henry IV Part 1 soliloquy speech, and I went, the sun, nothing was coming out. It was a bit like the French gig, but in English. And then he said, well, try the second speech, which was a Godot speech. And he said, I kind of wanted to say, so what do you think? You know? He didn't say anything. Yeah. And it ended up, when I was running comedy clubs, it ended up being my dressing room when I was running the Raging Bull Comedy Club at that building. So
there's also, too, a wonderful thing I picked up, again, in research about the problems of doing a thing in another language. And it's not so much the nuance of the language itself, it's about references. For instance, tell me the story about your Sean Connery.
Yes. Well, I think I'd like to do Sean Connery impressions. I'm not very good at doing them. I have actually stood in front of Sean Connery, who said, well, do this impression, do these impressions. Me and Julia Ormond, who did one as well. And so we're standing there talking Sean Connery to Sean Connery, and he said, so when are you going to start the impressions? And so I thought doing it in French would be good. So I was on stage, he was playing Noah, and God's James Mason saying, Noah, I want you to build me an arc. En français, Noah, il faut créer une arche, un arc. Speedboat, I think a speedboat, all board. And he was doing, and I was doing Sean Connery, voulez-vous se coucher avec moi? Je m'appelle Bond, James Bond, 007, avec une licence pour tuer quelqu'un. You know, and I was doing this, and I thought it was fun, and they seemed to be laughing, but I think it was a bilingual audience. A French guy came up afterwards and said, we do not know what he sounds like, really, because he is dubbed in France. So...
I love it. What about, let's now talk a wee bit about the marathons.
Yes.
I mean, you don't just do one marathon, you do 40-odd marathons. I mean, why? Was it 43 marathons in 51 days?
Someone's got to do it. Well, I'd planned to do a big run. I thought it was healthy. I thought I could regain the health that I had when I was 3. You know, because remember when we're kids, we do run like crazy. And there is before we've got all that refined sugar inside us, we're going. And then it all is just falling apart. And I thought I could regain that. It would be like a boot camp, an intense boot camp. I raise money. It might inspire some kid or some adult, say, I'll have a go at that. And also, we're living till 100. So if we want our later years to be good, you should be doing this fit thing. And all wild animals are fit. I met an 80-year-old lion who was about 14. Well, he's 14 or something, but he was 80 in our years or lion years or whatever it is. And he tried to kill us. Sorry, I shouldn't explain. I was invited to do a backstage look at the zoo of Boston.
Yes.
Because I'm touring around and people are nice and they kind of like my comedy. Say, how about I have a backstage tour? Which seemed like you're going to see the lions getting ready and making up and stuff and tuning up the guitars. But it was... when they come back into cages. And the lion wanted to... He could smell us. And there's about 12 of us lined up behind these iron bars of a cage. And the lion came in and just went up and went, rah! And sort of did this kind of false, I'm going to kill you type thing. And I thought, wow, that's an 80-year-old lion just showing I can still do it, baby. And that's kind of the physicality that we should have. Because we came out of the trees 2 million years ago and we were fit. And it's only about 10,000 years of getting worse and worse, and only about 100 years of refined sugar.
But you ran 1,200 miles in 51 days. I mean, that goes beyond common sense. I mean, you're likely...
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
You're likely to drop dead at any moment in time doing that. I mean, we're not designed to do that, are we?
Oh, well, maybe. Because the persistence hunters, still in some tribes in Africa, they chase up to 3 days after animals, and their sweat glands aren't as good as ours, so they just keep going. If you were running for 51 days, then you're a really crap hunter, I think. Or he's a really fast animal. But, yeah, maybe it's a bit long. But other people have done it. Dean Karnazes, an American, 50 marathons in 50 days. The last one he did in 3 hours. So we can do more than we think we can do.
Yes, yes. Are you frightened of growing old?
Ooh, interesting. I don't know where old is. Because I used to say old... I mean, I lived in Bexhill-on-Sea, and I used to have this joke that people live their lives, they retired, they moved to Eastbourne, then they lived a bit longer, then they died, then they moved to Bexhill. And since I made that joke, I've been trying to do crazy things in Bexhill. I did French gigs on the roof of the Delaware Pavilion in Bexhill, and the last person who did that was William the Conqueror, coming by just around there with his horses going, Le bataille, c'est pas ici, Hastings. Ah oui, bonne idée, bonne idée. You know, and the next gig was me 1,000 years later on the roof. So I'm trying to grow old. It's not gracefully. It's not. I'm just. Youth is. I mean, like the 80-year-old. I'm trying to be like the 80-year-old lion. The wild animals, they just stay fit. There is not one unfit wild animal. Not one. There's just. You've never seen a lion running and go, oh, hang on. You get the gazelle. They never do it, do they? Not one. No gazelle running away. I can't. Oh, it's the leg. Don't. You know. We do. Our most brilliant sports people go, hang on, hey, whoa, what's that? Wild animals don't.
No, you don't see them strapping on the legs, do you? On the knees?
No, they just don't have a problem with it. They live
or...
a hearty life and then they get munched. Not the lions and tigers.
And just briefly, this ambition you have to run 15 marathons in 15 days in Africa.
27.
27?
It's for Nelson Mandela in honour of his 27 years in prison.
Oh, right.
It's a tribute to Nelson Mandela.
And you started off doing that, and after 4 marathons, you had to give in.
I was on a thing for cholesterol, and it was not doing good for my insides, and they said stop.
But were you running barefoot?
I was considering barefoot running. There's a thing. There's pure barefoot, and there's barefoot technique, which is a whole style of running, which is very natural, and you wear very thin soles on the shoes, so none of this arches and built-up thing and springy pod.
So how does it differ then?
It's just more like
the posture of it.
The posture is, instead of reaching out with your legs, we tend to think if I do big strides that'll help. That's not how people run. You just push back. You land and push back. Just land and push back, and you run at this speed. It's about 180 beats per minute. Which I can sense now just from that. And so it's a lot of shorter steps, but it's a natural rhythm that's good for the elasticity of the body.
Have you met Mandela?
I have met Nelson Mandela.
And what did you make of him?
His short-term memory had gone. I mean, it was about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but he was repeating a few things, but his energy was there, the vitality was there. He was saying, who are you with? Who are you with? No, I want to meet them. Bring them in here. And I will wish to meet them. I met the Queen of England. I was meeting the Queen of England. I was talking to her. And it was great. He was there in the room. He didn't know who I was, but I'd raised money. I'd raised a million rand. And I just thought I'd do all my gigs and I'll give all the money to him. I said I could give it to him. And they said, no, put it to charity. All right, charity. But I wasn't expecting to meet him. And suddenly I was going to meet him. And Neil Armstrong was walking out as I was walking in. Yeah. Can you believe that? That was like, this is insane.
Let's sum up now, because as I said earlier when we were introducing you, you have this extraordinary career. I mean, if I were to sum you up, I'd say you're indefatigable and fearless. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I have tried to do a lot of fear management. The reason I could do a number of things, or I have pulled them off, is really the day I walked out the front door wearing a skirt and wearing makeup. Because if you can do that, if you can control that fear. And I walked out, I was wearing leg warmers. It was that time of when leg warmers were in. And I don't know if it was the first time, but first or second or third time, I walked out and I knew there was a bunch of kids that would come right outside our house and hang out around the corner shop in their lunchtime. So don't go out when the kids are there. And suddenly I opened the door and the kids are there, I've got the wrong time. And you can't go back into the house because they'll look and, oh my God. So I have to keep going and keep marching forward into the valley of death. And I walked straight through the kids and I don't look left and to the right. I just keep going through the kids. And what the one said was, he's wearing leg warmers. And that was it. And I thought, what a strength. I'm wearing a lot else, but I don't know quite why the leg warmers. But they were multicolored leg warmers.
So you faced that? So
yes, I faced that.
You faced the demons?
Yeah, it's if you can do that, it's like anyone who comes out, gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, you have to go through this knight's quest, the Arthurian quest for us, is going through this to get to a place of honesty and being true and trying to live your life. And also to try and hopefully have a job where people will allow you to be, you know, cool and you can be out. But also, you don't have to hide things. So it was the secret, getting past that secret. And once I did that and realised that you can push fear back, I have endlessly tried to push fear back. Doing gigs in French, a lot of fear in that. But you saw the fear there, that was me sweating. Pushing that fear back. Germany, there's going to be more fear. But they want me to succeed. I just played Berlin, 1,700 people, a place where Hitler used to watch shows. He used to have a box at the back. And so we did a fair insulting of Hitler with a German stand-up as well, Michael Mittermeier, who's playing his stuff in English. So I'll do it in German, and they're really ready for Brits to go over and do it in German. I don't think a huge amount of people will do it, but I'm going to do it.
So any young person watching this wondering, like you, wanting to be an actor or a performer, a comedian, yeah, then the message really is basically persistence, isn't it?
It is. Determination is the big key thing. Malcolm Gladwell, the writer, psychologist, talked about 10,000 hours. Everyone who really gets through to something long-term has put in 10,000 hours. It's a lot of hard work. Some people luck into stuff and they're 12 and they're 15 and suddenly they're as big in the world. It goes to their brain. It took me forever for my thing to take off. So I do realise it can go away. I know you have to work hard, attention to detail. And I try and give money's worth when I'm going out. I try and entertain first.
And when you look back on that child at 6, that disturbed child, I mean, isn't it funny how quite a few comedians have got this traumatic childhood? Billy Connolly, our friend. I mean, I watched someone on stage in Sydney, and he told us, he was talking about his youth and his dad, and he turned away, and as he turned, I could see he was crying. And we had dinner afterwards, and I said to him, what was all that about? And he said, one day I'll tell you. He didn't tell me, he told Pamela, of course. She wrote a very good book about it. It was about the abuse he was suffering in his childhood. All that was never there, and yet he was making people laugh about it all the time. It was kind of in the back of his mind all the time. He was telling fibs about it, but it was his way of working through it.
I think that's true. You can have lost a parent, you can have a parent, but then being a dysfunctional parent, they can be an abusive parent, they can, you know, they don't have to be abusive, they just be there but not very loving. And I think that creates, that yearning for loving creates a wish in people, in some people, to perform, and you get a surrogate affection from the audience, which is not unconditional either. You do have to work hard for it. So I do understand that. And, you know, Madonna's mother died when she was sick, Orson Welles' mother died. It could be father. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it's something in the childhood that's broken and lost, and you're trying to get it back through performing.
You're a very interesting man, you really are. And I think that anybody watching you, to any young person, will have learned quite a bit about what's required. Because there's a feeling nowadays, isn't there, that, you know, to be famous, all you have to do is just sort of go on some sort of talent show and have this overnight fame and everything's hunky-dory. That's not the case at all, is it? That's not satisfactory.
Well, no, it can take off from that, but it can crash almost as quickly. And it's like a druggy thing. So I accidentally was given... I learnt stamina. That's my thing. You know, I mean, because I consider I was 7 when I wanted to act, and then I was 30 when it worked. So I consider 23 years rather than the, you know, dropping out of university at 19, 11 years. I count all the child years as well. But, you know, I know that I can keep going when nothing is working. And that's the thing. Just keep heading forwards and try to be positive. If you get somewhere, try and help someone else up and encourage other people to do stuff.
Eddie Izzard, thank you very much indeed. Eddie Izzard.